Hello, and welcome to a new episode here where we're looking at the next issue in Die Hard Gamefan. We are at Volume 1, Issue 5. I definitely remember this one, and I think I mentioned that in my previous episode that this is still the one copy that I have in stored away in storage. And I love the cover to this. I was always a big fan of the movie Terminator, so getting to see this on the cover and all, I am pretty sure I was probably pretty ecstatic about seeing this in the magazine racks back in the day, and probably what kept us continuing to get this magazine here. But they have, so again, kind of going back to what I've mentioned before and all, right? They have games on their cover that weren't necessarily the more popular games and all. I don't remember a whole lot of coverage on Terminator CD from back in the day. I think that for the most part, some gaming magazines and all would have, I think they kind of liked the game and all, but nothing too mad, nothing too big. But it was just kind of cool to see a game like this, right, taking the front stage here. Yeah, so they were really starting to hype up the Sega CD, which is again another cool thing too, also, right? Because again, it was a system that I felt was really cool, but never really felt like it got its proper due in a lot of other magazines. But this is for the April 1993 issue, and again, it was still at $3.95. Let's go through here. So another ad for the Turbo Duo. I mean, this has been already, several issues in a row. And so table of contents here. And so let's get into the editorial zone here. So welcome to Gamefan number 5. We finally made it to 100 pages and we're glad you're here to check it out. What I'm concerned about this month is how some so-called editors can bag on Sega, saying they had a terrible showing at CES and basically are totally blowing it. What's behind this? They managed to successfully paint a totally negative picture without looking at the positives such as Spot, Fatal Fury, Flashback, Shinobi 3, Landstalker, Rocket Knight Adventure, Cyborg Justice, Splatterhouse 3, and X-Men, which are all excellent cards that are ready to go. And Batman Returns, Terminator CD, Sylphie, Wonder Dog, Himdale, Jaguar XJ220, Road Avengers, and Final Fight, some of which are are breakthrough CD games that bring us new technology like hardware scaling and fractal polygons for the first time, and are also very close to completion. Not to mention the virtual reality glasses, which I know firsthand will be awesome. What gives these boneheads the right to cut Sega down, given the circumstances in front of thousands of gamers? Talk about misleading the public. I bet you won't see them chomping on Nintendo's anytime soon. What puzzles me even further is that Sega adds plastered throughout their contents. Sega doesn't even advertise with us yet, but we wouldn't dare to start taking pot shots at them or anyone else that, for that matter. Bottom line, bring the info to the consumers and let them decide. Okay, I'm done. Thanks for listening and enjoy the issue. And again, part of that was kind of true. So, like I've been saying before, right? And all, it's perfectly okay, and obviously if you have a preference over one console over the other, but it definitely felt though that Sega Genesis games were sort of flying under the radar for a lot of people, or that they just weren't really talking too highly about them. I mean, all the games that he mentioned right there, just various varying degrees of quality, but for the most part, most of them are pretty good games. And again, all of them just kind of went, either unmentioned or not really praised that much. But such as just what was going on back then. Let's see, for quarterback. So let's see, most wanted top 10. Oh, did this page not come through? Oh, there it goes. Okay, so top 10. So number 1, Street Fighter 2 for the Super Nintendo. Number 2 was Sonic 2 for the Sega Genesis. Number 3 was Streets of Rage 2 for the Sega Genesis. Number 4, Mario Kart for the Super Nintendo. Number 5, Zelda 3, A Link to the Past for the Super Nintendo. Number 6, Super Star Wars for the Super Nintendo. Number 7, Art of Fighting for the Neo Geo. Number 8, Fatal Fury 2 for the Neo Geo. Number 9, Madden 93 for the Sega Genesis. And number 10, World Heroes Neo Geo. And then Most Wanted, number 1 is Sonic CD for the Sega CD. Number 2 is Landstalker for the Genesis. 3 is Battletoads for the Super Nintendo. 4, Batman Returns CD for the Sega CD. Number 5, Final Fight CD for the Sega CD. Number 6, Fantasy Star 4 for the Genesis. Number 7, Shinobi 3 for the Genesis. Number 8, Dragon Warriors for the Super Nintendo, which is Dragon Quest. Number 9, Cybernator Super Nintendo. And number 10, Final Fantasy 3 for the Super Nintendo. I think Final Fantasy 3. I think maybe they meant Final Fantasy 5. Well, I think, okay, actually, I believe it probably would have been Final Fantasy 3. Okay, because they were probably thinking Final Fantasy 5 had it come out in the States, and if they went off of the same way they were numbering them, then yes, that would have been Final Fantasy 3. So I think what they really mean here is Final Fantasy 5, actually, which they would have probably were assuming it was going to be called Final Fantasy 3 if it had come out here in the States. Let's see. Looks like the prizes are still pretty much the same. For Hocus Pocus, I do remember using this trick here in Chacon, where because you have 4 different stages, and then each one of them has like multiple stages within them, if I recall right, and they're all based on certain elements. And then this trick here kind of more or less, skips half the game, right? From what I recall. That's some game genie tips. Always thought this kind of looked too cool here for Art of Fighting. The scaling effects and all just thought were pretty cool. Okay, let's see. It's Creepy Sonic and Mario. And the Adventures of Monitar. Oh, he's on his way. Oh, they're dummies. Oh no. Why have you done this? You are the only one that has been giving us so much trouble as of late. My only concern is to keep bad games from the innocent. This is what I don't understand. We produce quality games here. For my son, I'd like to show you today. Bite hard, lame fan. That's funny. I mean, where's Monitor when you need him now, right? Nah, there's a lot of quality stuff coming out these days. The indie scene is just crazy good this year. But that's for another conversation. But for Viewpoint here, so let's see, I'll just kind of read over here what their picks of the month was. So Skid, E-Storm pick was, there's a lot of good games this month, but nothing jumps out at me, so I gotta go with Ninja Warriors. It must be the music. Sergeant Gamer, so this is a new person. So he says, for my first pick ever in Viewpoint, I go Fatal Fury all the way. I turned the sound up and I thought I was playing the Neo Geo. And so let's see. For Tom Slick, it was tough, but Batman Returns Edges by Cyborg Justice for my pick of the month. You just can't beat Konami. And then the Inquirer says Ninja Warriors was my pick of the month. The first game that demonstrates that there is really power in the Mega CD. A perfect translation. Okay, some of that is cut off, but yeah. But see, so they had this James Bond game, which I never did play this game, but supposedly it was pretty decent. And then, so Fatal Fury, so from Picard, so kind of like what he was saying, this Sergeant Gamer dude, that, yeah, I mean, they were doing pretty good translations. I mean, the graphics are definitely watered down from the Neo Geo version, but they're still pretty good. And, granted, the sound effects and all are going to be obviously as good and all that. But it's a fine playing game. It was definitely one of the better fighters for the Sega Genesis at the time. And yeah, I mean, again, for not having the Neo Geo accessible, right? Because again, nobody, that I ever knew had the Neo Geo back then. It was just kind of cool that we could still experience some of their games through these pretty excellent ports that Takara was doing. And Blaster Master 2, so they gave it pretty decent reviews here. The Flintstones, never did play that game, but they thought it was pretty okay. So X-Men, again, here's a game that I really wanted to like, but just couldn't. Cyber Justice, I remember we rented this game, again, based off of these reviews here, and it's not bad. I remember I kind of liked it. I like the way you can customize your cyborgs in it, and the animation in it was pretty impressive. Around 2019, we got okay rate. I just played it after the fact, like through emulation. Hit the Ice. This is another game I remember renting back in the day. We had fun with it. Willy Beamish. Again, it's kind of like a fun little animated kind of point and click Sega CD game, but never did play it, but maybe I'll check it out sometime on emulation. Ninja Warriors. This game was always pretty cool in the arcades because it had like this really kind of like ultra wide screen and all. That was pretty cool to see back in the day. The music was pretty amazing too. I just remember the soundtrack sounding awesome with the arcade speakers in the at the arcades. Never did play the Sega CD version. Well, I should say Mega CD because it didn't come out here in the States. I don't believe, but it looks like the soundtrack was pretty good in it too, and it's a cool action game. But Batman Returns on the Super Nintendo, this was a pretty cool beat 'em up. It kind of felt a little bit the what like Streets of Rage got right, where the characters and the collision between them and all that just feels pretty good, and like they're really connecting, and the like the strikes and the punches and the body slams and all that really feel like they're impactful. So yeah, it's a pretty good beat 'em up. It's a bit hard, at least from what I played of it and all, but it's pretty good. And so there was a Terminator game on the Super Nintendo, but it didn't get the best reviews. I mean, if I just always remember there was times where I definitely did feel like, okay, Gamefan, they maybe overpraised the game a little too much. But if there was ever a time where they gave a game really bad reviews, it seemed like it was definitely a bad game. And that's kind of what I feel like the Terminator was. I mean, they didn't give it that great grades, and this is reviews. And again, this is from a company or a magazine that was just giving all kinds of great reviews. So, but let's see, Kindle's Rage, I believe is what this one's called. Again, it's kind of cut off over here. And then Bob, I remember it's kind of like an alien. You're like this weird alien robot thing. Looks like you got okay reviews. And then Hardy's Humongous Adventure. Looks like just got okay review. And then Gods, I vaguely remember that game. King Arthur's World, some kind of a puzzle game, I believe. Kitaro's Adventure, it was a import, I believe. Same with Musia, I think that's how you pronounce that. But Lords of Thunder. This is a great game. I played this on the Sega CD, but originally came out on the TurboGrafx. And yeah, let's see. This game has it all. The music is pumping, the action is fast, and the graphics are excellent. The different levels and monstrous enemies keep the game challenging. A sequel to Gates of Thunder, Lords is welcome as the best as one of the best shooters for the duo. Yeah, amazing game. I love that game. Magician Lord. So this is a game that they were really raving about, probably because it was one of the few action games on the Neo Geo that wasn't like a beat 'em up or a fighting game and all. You played like this wizard, and you're able to shoot like these magic beams, or I guess, and transform into certain other creatures or beings. And it's fun. What I played of it and all, it's definitely the graphics were pretty impressive at the time and all. I love the soundtrack to it and very arcadey. And yeah, I dig it. I think it's a pretty good game. I don't know if I'd go as far as giving it a 99, but it was definitely a good game though. But they also reviewed NAM 1975, which got decent reviews too. And advertisement there for this Muhammad Ali game. And so here we go. Here we go with the Sega sector. So the Terminator CD. So yeah, what was pretty cool about this version here is that they really wanted to do something different because there was a Terminator game that had come out on the Super Nintendo, which reviewed pretty poorly, as you saw earlier there. And then there was one on the Sega Genesis from Virgin Games, which they also did. Virgin Games also did the Terminator CD, but it was like completely different versions. And the one on the Genesis, it's decent. It's not that bad, but it's really short though. And what was like 4 levels. So not a whole lot of meat to the bone, so to speak. But I remember I enjoyed it. We bought that game, and again, just probably because we just loved the Terminator back then. And what I remember about Terminator CD is we bought it, and for some reason, I remember I couldn't really get into it though. Like I didn't like it. And so we ended up returning the game and got something else. I forgot what other game we got on the Sega CD, but I remember being a bit disappointed with this game when back then. Well, I played the game fairly recently, like about a year and a half ago or so, again on emulation, and went through the game and beat it. And I thought it was actually really good. I enjoyed it. I mean, for just kind of like a run and gun shooter kind of. I mean, it's not groundbreaking or anything, but it was definitely a fun time. And I just got thinking, I was like, I don't know what I was expecting back then, I guess, but cause I was disappointed in it back then. But now I'm like, hey, I like this. Really looking forward to that. Terminator 2 No Fate 2D game. Oh, that looks amazing. Yeah, but I always thought this looked kind of cool here. But then there's Splatterhouse 3, which is takes a little bit of a different gameplay style. I mean, the Splatterhouse games are kind of more they're like beat 'em ups, but this one a little bit more in lines of like something like Streets of Rage or so. You can kind of move up and down in the playing field, do combos, grab your enemies, and all that. And it. I definitely like the horror elements of it, the gore, the the gameplay and all is pretty fun and all. It's just that it's a bit hard though. I I just remember getting kind of frustrated with playing this game. Maybe now as an adult, I should try to give it a chance again and I'll see if I can kind of really figure out the game mechanics more. But if I recall right, it has like these depending on how quickly you can get through a stage and all, right, it can change like ultimately what ends up happening in the game a bit, or at least the ending to some extent. But yeah, Splatterhouse 3, I really like the game. It's just that it's kind of hard, but again, maybe I should give it another shot. Rolling Thunder 3, I do remember getting into this game. Again, another game we rented back then, based off of what we were seeing in this magazine. And Rolling Thunder 2, I do remember that one being the more popular one. But this is the one that I rented and played and beat, and we enjoyed it. I mean, I remember my brother, we enjoyed this game quite a bit, actually. It's a pretty fun game. But James Bond, never did play this one, but looks interesting. Maybe I'll check it out on emulator sometime. And Fatal Fury. So, if you're just looking at the screenshots and all, I mean, it seems like it's pretty comparable to the Neo Geo version. I mean, the sprites are pretty big, they're pretty colorful and all that. Now, if you actually put it next to the Neo Geo, well, you'll start definitely seeing some of its shortcomings and all, but it's still good though. I mean, it was a pretty good port, and so definitely worth checking out if you really wanted to try these Neo Geo games, but just didn't have the money to fork over right for an actual console. And the games too, because the games are pretty expensive. And the games were like, I don't know how much, I don't know how many megabytes the Fatal Fury was on the Neo Geo, but I do recall them pushing up to like almost 100 megabytes and all. This one was only 12, or no, I'm sorry, 16 megs, according to this anyways here. Yeah, we were looking at these screenshots. I'm like, wow, that really does look like the Neo Geo, and it does. I mean, it's not bad. Oh, excuse me. And so here we go with Blaster Master 2. Pretty cool game. The Flintstones. Yeah, it seems like it would have been, a decent platformer. And the X-Men. Yeah. I'll just read this real quick. So somebody finally did the X-Men justice in a video game, and of course, it's Sega. See, like I said, right? They really were into Sega. But for some reason, I wasn't that excited about this one, probably because most comic book games of late have been anything but great games. So when I started playing X-Men, I was really surprised. The characters are large and highly detailed. They also move very well and have specialized attack techniques that are easy to execute. For instance, the Cyclops eye beam you can power up by holding the button and then rotate his head 360 degrees. Most of the characters also have a double jump. Oh, it's getting kind of late. But similar to Chakan, actually, it's mastering each character and adapting it to the right level that ultimately leads to victory. I can guarantee that using the wrong character or set of characters will lead to certain death. The coolest thing about the game was jumping in and out of the background, as well as the use of Iceman, Storm, Archangel, and Jean Grey as options. Graphically, X-Men is excellent with good detail on all the X-Men and the enemies alike. If I have one complaint, it would be the music. It's okay for a homegrown game, but still not up to par with Japanese games. If you're looking for a good, long action game, join Gambit, Wolverine, Nightcrawler, and Cyclops, and toast Magneto once and for all. Yeah, like I said, I remember renting this game, and I was really into the X-Men cartoons and all, but just it was just a really hard game. This guy right here, I remember having a hard time with Apocalypse. The Cyborg Justice, yeah, I remember playing this game. It was a fun beat 'em up from what I can recall back then. I haven't played it since, but I do. Okay, yeah, they even mentioned the animation here. Yeah, it was pretty impressive. Outrun 2019. Maybe I should try to check this game out. Hit the Ice, a fun little arcade game, arcade sports game. And Elemental Master, a great shooter by Technosoft. So they've done like Thunder Force games and all. This one was published by Renovation though. But yeah, basically you play like this kind of like a wizard, warrior, or sorcerer kind of dude. Yeah, but it plays um, like a vertical shooter, and on each stage has like some kind of a boss that gives you like an elemental power that you take over to the next stage. And yeah, it's a fun shooter, nothing too special and all that. But I just thought that it was kind of cool that it's a different concept, right? Where again you're playing like the sorcerer as opposed to like a space shooter and all that. But excellent music, like a lot of Technosoft games did. One of the greatest like ending themes to like when the credits are rolling, just a great song. Uh, and yeah, I mean, if you like shooters, I highly recommend this game on the Sega Genesis. I can't think of another way of playing this game outside of just in emulation, or unless you just happen to have the original copy. Yeah, great game though. I really enjoy that game. Uh, so this Time Gal game, so they were giving a preview of it. One of those Sega CD kind of full motion video. Well, this one was like one of those quick time laser, kind of like those laser disc game. In this Adventures of Willie Beamish. Seems like a silly game. And then this Ninja Warriors game. This Annette Again game. They're really hyping this game up, but I do want to say that I think I heard somewhere that the game was just really bad, though, actually. Again, it kind of plays like a hack and slash game, where the previous game called El Viento was more action oriented. Yeah, I remember somehow it had this Ernest Evans dude. Somehow he was tied into the story of this one also. But then there's this Devastator game. It's like some kind of a Sega CD shooter. Wolf Team, man. I mean, they were all over the place for the Sega CD. Wolf Team, Wolf Team. Well, this game would have been from Tato, but then in the previous issue, Wolf Child. Yeah, they were busy back then. But for some previews, so here's this Hemdale game, which I thought was actually pretty decent. I remember borrowing this game from a friend, and I thought it was pretty good. Sonic CD, so it looks like it got delayed at this point. Rocket Knight Adventure looks like it was starting to hype up the some of these editors here. Sylphie, I mean, it was looking pretty stunning even back then. Mazine Saga, Golden X3. I always thought the screenshot looked pretty cool in Final Fight. With the bridge and all. I thought that looked pretty impressive. Let's see, X-Rom Zone. That was a game we talked about last month. Well, here we go with Batman Returns. And again, great beat 'em up, great music too, also very reminiscent of the movie. So, pretty decent driving scenes, which pretty comparable to what the Sega CD version was. Terminator. So it looks like they gotta talk about how the game actually opens up pretty strong, but I guess it gets pretty bad afterwards. Wolfchild game again. Shadowrun. Here's kind of like a cyberpunk sort of RPG that I want to try to get into at some point. I remember they were talking pretty decently about it. And Bob. Harry's Humongous Adventure. This game used like some kind of like clay animation style of some sort. Super Widget, which I believe was like a Saturday morning cartoon, if I recall. But then we got this God's Game. It looks like here's a game that was more or less the same on both consoles, just the Super Nintendo version had more, I guess, better sound. This seems to be some kind of an action platformer maze game. King Arthur's World kind of reminds me, looks like of Lemmings. That's kind of what it looks like. Guitar's Adventure. This is some kind of a imported game. I just thought it was cool, right? Again, back in the day, seeing a lot of these games from Japan. Musia, I believe is how you say this. Oh, it looks cool, but excuse me, God, I'm gonna pass out here soon. But yeah, the game looks pretty fun though. Or I don't know, if fun's the word, but seems pretty cool though. And those Rage, some kind of action game, almost kind of like in the style of Bally's. Looks like New Gear. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but here's another Wolf Team game. Only this time it was on the Super Nintendo, which looks like they were kind of surprised because again, most Neugear, that's what it's called, Neugear. Yeah, but this one was on the Super Nintendo though. Looks kind of cool. I remember looking at the screenshots of this and seemed like something that I would want to play. I never did get to. Exhaust Heat, so okay, that uses Mode 7. Mode 7 was a pretty cool effect. Basically, it's just where you can do like this, almost like this infinite plane of scaling and rotation, which some games use it to pretty good effect. Let's see, for the previous year, so we got this Final Fight 2 that's coming out. Breath of Fire game becoming kind of popular. Star Fox, they're teasing a big review the following issue. Tasmania, they were kind of raving about this game too. Also, I played a little bit of it and on. I guess it's kind of cool, but I prefer the Genesis version, which is kind of more of a straight platformer. Where this is sort of like a racing game almost. And then on the TurboGrafx, so we had Bomberman 93, this Streets of Rage knockoff called Riot Zone. And oh yeah, Lords of Thunder. Great shooter, amazing music. I mean, the music is just like metal, very cool. Goes really well with the game. Pong 3. I've kind of messed around with these games. They're fun. And we get to some advertisements here. Then we get into the PC Engine section. How do you pronounce this? Parodius? Parodius? It's kind of about, what is this, a horror story? I think that's what it's called. And then for the Sega CD preview, we have this Cotton game. Oh boy! Oh yeah, I've always heard a good thing about these Cotton games. I have I think about like two of them on my Switch. One of them is like the Sega Saturn game, and then I think the other one is a Sega Genesis game from Cotton. But they look interesting. Oh, Last Battle. A very early Sega Genesis game. So for those of you that ran out and bought a Genesis on day one, like I did, are undoubtedly familiar with Last Battle. Remember the first time you saw those scrolls? I couldn't believe it. Or of course now we're spoiled we're looking for scaling and rotation, massive soundtracks, and zillion colors. But still, it's fun to look back. To this day, Last Battle is not a bad game. Although I do prefer the import with the spurting blood. and if you've never bought it, one that I would recommend picking up used. It's fun, not only to see how far we've come, but to see how lame some developers are who to this day haven't matched Last Battle's quality. We dug deep in this month in the graveyard. It wasn't that old. It was, this is April 1993. Last Battle would have come in, and I guess it was already like almost 4 years old, 3.5 years old, give or take. But yeah, I remember looking at the screenshots of this wrestling game, and I was like, wow, that looks really stunning. And it does. Like, look at the car effects on this. These cars look kind of almost real like. That's pretty good. Magician Lord. Damn, 1975. So some Neo Geo previews. Oh, and I remember I enjoyed this section here. So we weren't getting a whole lot of RPGs back then. And so this was this little section here. I remember getting a little jealous because I was like, man, like Japan is getting a lot of cool stuff. How come we don't get some of this stuff over here? And yeah, some of the games I'm going to show you here never left Japan. They stayed over there. In some cases forever, as far as I know. Some of them did eventually come out, in later years, maybe on later systems. But like for example, this one here, it's called Bay Area, published by Wolf Team. Again, Wolf Team. And yeah, I mean, it looked pretty cool. I mean, I remember looking at the screenshots there, and I was like, wow, this looks pretty sick. But again, just another game that didn't come out over here. Might have been for the best. Like I said, who knows if these games would have been good or not. But it looked cool, and I remember, like really wanted to play these games, just never, got a chance to. But nowadays and all that, maybe I should find a way to emulate it. Isle Lord. So another game here also that, as far as I know, they came out in Japan. So it's also published, or at least published by Wolf Team. Huh. I can remember being stuck in the later dungeons for up to 10 hours at a time. Jesus. I don't know if that sounds fun. Yeah, I mean, the animations, the cutscenes, and all that look pretty cool. But again, never got it over here. But Lunar. I really enjoyed this game. And so out of all these RPGs that they were showing here, right, and all, this is one that actually did end up coming over here to the States eventually. The one of, if not the best experiences I've had since I started playing RPGs is Lunar. Game Arts poured their heart and soul into this game, and the result is pure magic. Lunar has everything an RPG player could ever ask for. Brilliant, colorful, and detailed towns with perfect animation to detail, incredible detailed characters and enemies who take place in animated fight scenes that make Final Fantasy look like 8-bit, and music that is so incredible, I guarantee you will listen to it over and over long after you've beaten the game. In Lunar, you and, well, it says Alice, but it's Alex, take off on a huge adventure across the sea to the magical floating city and all its vast surrounding areas. Lunar is a massive game filled with brilliant animation sequences between big events and an ending that you will not believe. If this game is not picked up over here, it will convince me once and for all that some of the so-called marketing pros are brain donors. But since I know that is not true, I will look forward to playing Lunar again, and I won't need Kai to translate everything for me this time. I believe he was like their translator there. But yeah, amazing game. I love Lunar so much. It's one of my all-time favorites. And the Sega CD version, I definitely feel like it had the better soundtrack out of like some of the later releases that came out. Lunar games in general just have good music, but this one for some reason, the Sega CD version, it's just really, it's a beautiful soundtrack. I really enjoy it. But Final Fantasy V. So here they're talking about this game here. So Final Fantasy V is one of the only games on the market that truly shows off 60 megs of programming power. The card contains uses or use or this card. Sorry, again, it's cut off over there. Continues the tradition of previous Final Fantasy games on the Super Nintendo. The game features outstanding graphics, of course, impressive sound and music, some new features not found in previous Final Fantasy adventures, and a strong story with a deep involved quest. As mentioned earlier, this game has some new features, including a new job system, submarines, an improved ATB system with facial expressions on each of the characters. Job systems are features so characters can change reputation and abilities at any time during the game. For instance, if you have a knight, you can make him perform white magic. In brief, you can create characters such as knights with white magic, ninjas with color magic, thieves with coin throws, etc. A submarine is offered as a new mode of transportation where your character can travel either on the surface or under the water with a touch of a button. The graphic detail in this game extends to clever animations, expressions that are used in almost every event, adding a touch of humor not found in most role-playing games. Final Fantasy V is also known for a character named Chocobo, in parentheses chickens. In past adventures, Chocobo did not play an important role to the quest, but in this version, he is critical to the outcome of the game. Overall, Final Fantasy V is the best RPG I have played on the Super Nintendo. Final Fantasy V is a must-buy for any role-playing freak and is highly recommended. Never came out here in the States, though, until much later. But then there was this Dragon Ball Z game, which looks like it was some kind of an RPG of some sort. And then Dragon Quest V. So this is where I started finding now the rivalry that Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest had over in Japan, and just how popular these Dragon Quest games were. I mean, we got at this point we did get part 1, 2, 3, and 4 on the Nintendo. I'm pretty sure all of it. Yeah, I'm pretty sure part 4 got localized over here in the Nintendo. But then after that, they must have not been making a whole lot of money on them. And again, RPGs were still fairly, pretty niche. So yeah, Dragon Quest just never really caught on back then. It's definitely finding its following now, but I mean, even now, they're still not too super popular. But here's what they have to say on this one here for Dragon Quest V. So Dragon Quest brings back some of the best memories in my life, as I've played every quest on the 8-bit Famicom. I've been eagerly awaiting the arrival of the 16-bit version for a long, long time. So when it finally showed up, I was happy beyond words. What I find so exciting about Dragon Quest series is the great playability and the highly involved and well-planned storyline. A long, long time ago, the evil king was killed by heroes from heaven. Since then, a few hundred years have passed with no fear, but a mysterious darkness has approached the peaceful world. So now you and your father will set on this journey through the world of Dragon Quest V to solve its mystery. During the course of this adventure, you will grow from age 8 to an adult, and eventually you and your father will save the world. Look for more on this awesome RPG in our next RPG special. So yeah, so Dragon Quest V. I mean, I've played a little bit of it and all, and I really enjoy it. It's definitely a Dragon Quest game I really need to get into, because I feel like it'll be one of my more favorite JRPGs of all time. Because it was definitely influential in a lot of ways. For a lot of people, it's their favorite Dragon Quest Dragon Quest game. I think the creator Yuji Horii, I believe is his name. I think he's come out saying that this has been his favorite one too, also. So, like Hironobu Sakaguchi has said Final Fantasy IX is his favorite. This is the one that I believe the creator for Dragon Quest has said is his favorite. They even made like a little movie on it about it, like an animated movie on Netflix to kind of show the popularity of this game. And then some game called Vilgust. Not sure what this is. And Shining Force. We did get this game eventually over here. Yeah, great strategy RPG. I have a save file where I'm right at the last boss, so maybe I'll try to beat that at some point soon, because I've never beaten this game, but I would like to beat it and eventually get onto some of the like part 2, and because that's one that I haven't really played a lot, and I know that it's also some of people's favorite games in the series, or game in the series. But yeah, great strategy RPG. King Colossus. This is a game that I always thought looked interesting. And I have it now emulated and all, but back then I just thought it looked pretty cool, kind of like a Zelda sort of clone in a way, but was only in Japan at the time. But I thought this looked cool because I was like, "What are you looking at, a coliseum of some sort?" and all. So it just looked interesting to me. Now here's the Postmeister section. Let's see, I'll just read through one here. So, dear Postmeister, I have one thing to say about your magazine. Boom. It has the best information and reviews that I have ever seen. I must say it is the only one that's on display that displays the correct color of the games. I also like the thick pages in your magazine. They don't rip like the other ones. You are now my number one gaming magazine. My question is Strider 2 going to be as good as the first? And how about some screenshots? Don't change a thing. Dear Jamie, thanks for the boom. As for Strider 2, the early version I played at the recent CES looked very promising, although the character could use more animation. Unfortunately, there is some legal trouble regarding the name, which will undoubtedly now change, so the game has been pushed back. We'll keep you up to date and try to bring a preview as soon as possible. P.S. If you have a Super NES, check out Run Saver. It is almost identical to Strider and is two-player. Thanks for the letter. Sorry to tell you, Jamie, but Street Fighter 2 on the Sega Genesis is one of the worst games I've ever played. It's just so broken, so slow and choppy and all that. And apparently, they never did fix those animations that he was talking about there. It's just a horrible game, and which was pretty sad since I was always a big fan of Strider, the first one. But we did get a decent sequel though later on, but on the next generation. The episode using that Wonder Dog backdrop. But let's see what they were talking about here in other stuff. No, so they're starting to talk about Street Fighter 3. So this new version will incorporate only two of the original cast from Part 2, Ryu and Sagat. You know what that means? 14 new characters. Now, when Ryu does his fireball, he has aura around him, and Sagat can now do a Tiger Knee helicopter kick. Instead of 3 special moves per character, there are now 5, and there is no more lag time after throwing a fireball, and you can automatically connect it with a Dragon Punch. And there's no more charging moves to do like Sonic Gao, Sonic Boom, or Blanca Spinning Ball from Part 2. There's also to be one command that all characters can use as far as new characters. We only know about two so far: Chun-Li's younger sister and Bison's mentor, who will be the last boss. His name is Shadow Lu. Street Fighter 3 is only a working title. Maybe even the name may even change. This game will incorporate two new 16-bit processors created by Capcom, which will be running parallel to each other, parallel processing. You will have more info, or we will have more info for you in the next month, and maybe a big surprise. Remember, you heard it here first. So not quite what Street Fighter 3 ended up becoming, but just kind of interesting, to hear their thoughts on it back then. But let's see, anything else of note here? So Konami is also hard at work on their first SFX title, Castlevania 5, which is 25% complete. What would have that been like? I'm curious. Let's see. But I kind of forgot that Sega was doing like some kind of a VR headset thing back in the day. But yeah, so they're starting to talk about how Konami was working on a Castlevania game for the Sega Genesis. And they're talking here about the 3DO and the Jaguar. Huh. World Heroes 2. And some advertisements. And we end on an advertisement for James Bond 007 The Duel. So, yeah. What do you think of this issue? One thing that I do recall reading this issue quite a bit, and maybe it's somehow subconsciously, maybe I did save it for a reason, because I really enjoyed that RPG special that we looked at a little bit ago. And again, because it was just fun at the time. Like I said, we weren't getting a whole lot of RPGs, and this was where I was starting to open up my eyes of just a lot of the cool stuff that was coming out in Japan at the time. Because again, back then, Japan had the cool stuff, right? Not so much here in the United States. You wanted games from Japan. That was sort of the sentiment from back then. But yeah, definitely a good issue. Always fun to look back at this issue here and all. And hope you had a fun time just going over that issue there, a little trip down memory lane. And I'll see you in the next one.